You ever feel like the summers of your childhood just went on forever, but now whole years just seem to disappear in a flash? Yeah, it's a feeling pretty much everyone shares. So, let's dive into this. We're going to unpack the science and the psychology behind why our perception of time seems to speed up, like way up, as we get older.
I mean, it's a really personal question, right? Weeks just kind of blend into months, and then boom, a new year is here. So is time actually moving faster? Or is something else going on inside our heads? Something that creates this incredibly powerful illusion?
Well, the first thing to know is this. You are definitely not imagining it. This feeling is so common, so consistent that, well, researchers and just regular people have been trying to explain it for years. It is a genuine, shared part of being human.
Okay, so we all feel it. But what's actually causing it? Let's dig into the leading theories, everything from popular ideas you've probably seen online to what's really happening inside our brains, and see if we can solve this shared mystery together.
And yeah, it's a consensus you'll find pretty much everywhere. Just like in this Reddit comment here, it's just a fundamental part of how we experience our lives.
So, what are the popular explanations for this whole thing? Well, people have come up with some really intuitive ideas to try and make sense of it. And what's wild is that some of them get surprisingly close to what the actual science says.
All right, let's start with the wisdom of the crowd. You know, on places like Reddit, two main theories always seem to pop up when people talk about this. They're both pretty compelling, but one of them definitely has a bit more scientific weight behind it.
So, the first one is what you could call the proportional time theory. It goes like this. When you're 5 years old, 1 year is a massive 20% of your entire life. But when you're 50, it's just 2%. So, of course, each year feels smaller. Makes sense, right? But the theory we're really going to focus on is the novelty theory. And this one suggests that time feels faster because our lives just have fewer new experiences as we get older.
And this quote, this just illustrates the whole idea perfectly. Think about it. A kid's brain is constantly encoding new stuff. The first day of school, learning to ride a bike, that first trip to the ocean, all huge memories. An adult's brain, though, it often runs on routine. And all those routine days just get compressed in our memory, making time seem to shrink when we look back on it.
Okay, so that whole novelty idea sounds really compelling, right? But does the science actually back it up? Oh yeah, absolutely. Neuroscientists who study how we perceive time have found that new and surprising events are, in fact, critically important.
And this leads us to a really key scientific concept called the temporal oddball effect. So get this, in lab experiments, scientists will show people a bunch of identical images, one after another. And then they'll throw in one surprising, oddball image for the exact same amount of time. But people consistently say that the oddball image felt like it was on the screen for longer. Your brain literally stretches out the time for new experiences.
Okay, I know this graph looks a little complex, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. Just look at the purple line there. That's the one tracking those surprising, oddball events. See how it's staying above the 1.0 mark? That just means people felt those events lasted longer than they really did. Now look at the blue line for the repeated, boring events. It's hovering right around 1, meaning time felt normal. This is the proof right here. Novelty actually makes time feel expanded in our minds.
But it's not just about attention. The story actually goes a lot deeper than that. To really understand our internal clock, we have to look at the brain chemistry that helps run the whole show, and specifically a very, very famous neurotransmitter.
Yep, we're talking about dopamine. Now, we usually think of dopamine as being all about pleasure and motivation, right? But it turns out it also plays this totally surprising and crucial role in how our brain actually keeps time.
So here's the key finding. When you boost dopamine activity in the brain, it actually makes your internal clock tick faster. And when that clock is ticking faster, it's recording more ticks for any given minute. So when you look back, it feels like less time has passed than what the actual clock on the wall says. This is literally the science behind that old saying, time flies when you're having fun. The fun boosts the dopamine, and that makes our perception of time just zoom by. And, as researcher Joseph Payton points out, this might actually be an evolutionary advantage. I mean, think about it. When you're engaged in something rewarding, something that gives you a hit of dopamine, your brain makes time feel like it's flying by. And what does that do? It encourages you to keep doing that thing that's good for you.
Okay, so all of this is building up to an even bigger, kind of mind-bending idea.
To really get our heads around this, some theorists argue that we need to think about time in two totally separate categories: the time that's on the clock and the time that's inside our minds.
So, you've got external time. That's clock time. It's constant, it's objective, a second is always a second, no matter what. But then you have internal time, and that's your perception. It's flexible, it's totally subjective, and it's deeply influenced by what's going on in your brain, including, you guessed it, your dopamine levels.
Now this graph visualizes a really mind-bending idea from a theoretical model. Don't worry about the math here, just focus on the shape of those curves. What they're showing is that as real time moves forward along the bottom, internal time on the side can stretch out and basically approach infinity. It's a way of modeling how a really short period of clock time could in theory feel like an absolute eternity inside our heads.
And here's the really stunning hypothesis from that paper. It suggests that as our dopamine system naturally changes as we get older, this split between internal and external time could become even more extreme. It's a potential framework for why our experience of time seems to warp so dramatically as the years go by.
So, after digging through internet theories, neuroscience, and even some theoretical physics, what's the big takeaway here? Can we actually do anything to slow down how we perceive time? Well, based on everything we've just talked about, the answer is, yeah, yes we can.
And the key really brings us right back to where we started, the power of novelty. If you want to make time feel longer, richer, you have to feed your brain new data. You have to seek out new experiences, break your routines, and just pay closer attention to the details. That's what forces your brain off of autopilot and makes it start laying down those dense, detailed memories again.
And this brings us right back to that perfect summary from that Reddit user, the Tiki Lady. Time itself isn't moving any faster. It's our experience of it that gets thinner when life becomes too familiar. And the antidote, as we've just seen, is novelty.
So, I'll leave you with a question. If new experiences are the key to slowing down how you perceive time, what new thing will you do tomorrow? And look, it doesn't have to be some huge, life-changing thing. Try a different route to work, cook a new recipe, listen to a new podcast. The power to stretch time, to make your life feel longer and way more memorable. It's surprisingly in your hands.